With pride, we welcome you to Winnipeg, the host city in the heart of Canada. Your visit to Winnipeg coincides with the visit of two other very important visitors, Chang Chang and Rong Rong. Their stay at the Winnipeg Zoo will be the only visit of giant pandas in the world this year. Now, let's meet the players and participants of the 1989 National Series of Reach for the Top. Hi, everyone. I'm Stan Mahalik, and welcome to the National Finals of Reach for the Top. This is it, the championship game between British Columbia and Ontario. This is for all the marbles. Let me tell you how they both got here. British Columbia started down here, took on Alberta in the quarterfinals, moved up into the semis, took on the winner of the Manitoba-New Brunswick game, Manitoba, and won to move into the finals. Ontario came by way of these quarterfinals, taking on Central Ontario, moving up to the semis, then playing Nova Scotia, who beat Saskatchewan in the quarters to move on to the finals. Reminder, all 8 teams here represent hundreds of teams across Canada. Just being in this competition is a trick in itself. Here is a look at our 2 teams today, British Columbia and Ontario. Before we meet the students individually, let me introduce to you the judges for this championship game. Paul Russell and Neil Harris. Our official scorekeepers, Sandy Wallachuk and Vona Geiler. And our championship quizmaster, Kathy Daly.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome to this championship final. We're very excited to introduce you to the players, the teams which made it all the way here from all across the country, from British Columbia and from Ontario. We're first going to say hello to the players from BC, all the way from Victoria, BC, and Mount Douglas Senior Secondary School. Let's say hello to Craig Steeves, Jeff Crofton, Daryl Thompson, and Ian Dixon. And their coach is in the studio audience, Ted Lampard. And from Ontario, representing Ontario and making it all the way here to the finals from Avonmore, Ontario, is Tagwi Secondary School's Peter Simard, Claude Théoret, Neil Wheeler, and Alan Coleman. And their coach is Dan Maloney. Well, this is what it's all about, so let's not waste any more time and begin, gentlemen, with a round of snappers. In football, how many points are awarded for Jeff?
2.
2 for a safety, that's right. The zodiac sign Libra is represented. Neil.
Scales.
Yes. Which actor portrayed the title character in the movie The Godfather? Jeff.
Al Pacino.
Not there. Ontario. Alan.
Marlon Brando.
Right for 10. The Wailing Wall can be found in
Jerusalem.
Craig. Yes, that's right. How many sides does the geometric shape for Neil?
12.
For the home plate in baseball have, Jeff?
5.
5 is right. An open question now for 30 points. And the answers to the next questions start with the letters C-A-N. All right. What is the scientific name for wolf? Neil.
Canis lupus.
Right for 10. What is the name for a refreshment stand? Neil. Not
Canteen.
there. Not there on time.
A
Craig.
canteen?
Canteen is right. Name a card game that is a variation. Neil.
Canasta.
Canasta is right for 10 points. Here's an open video question. It's worth 20 points. On portraits, please watch your monitors and wait for the questions. This portrait study was painted by which French artist? Claude.
Gauguin.
Not Gauguin. British Columbia. Craig.
Renoir.
Cézanne. Paul Cézanne painted that work. Now, which famous French writer admired Cézanne? Neil.
Hugo.
And encouraged his work. British Columbia. Émile Zola. Here's a 35-point team question now, and the scramble for 5 points will allow whichever team to answer it correctly go on to earn the next possibly 30 points exclusively. So for 5 points, Citadel Hill overlooks the harbor. Jeff.
Halifax.
Halifax is right. Good for 5 points. British Columbia a chance to earn the next 30 points, and the questions deal with Halifax. The inner area of Halifax Harbor is called what? I need an answer. Craig?
The Inner Harbor?
Bedford Basin. In 1838, which Haligonian entrepreneur formed a shipping line which later specialized in luxury liners? Ian.
Cunard.
That is right for 10 points. In what 20th century year did an explosion of a munitions ship kill 1,800 people and destroy the northern part of Halifax City? Daryl.
1917.
Right for 10 points. Here's an open question now. It's for 30 points on the financial markets. In which city is the world's largest stock? Neil.
New York.
Stock exchange in terms of Jeff.
Tokyo.
Tokyo is right in terms of value of shares traded. What city is home to the world's fourth largest? Neil.
Toronto.
Toronto is right for 10 points. What city has North America's largest venture? Craig.
New York.
Venture capital market, Ontario. Neil.
Vancouver.
Vancouver's right for 10 points. Here's an open question for 40 points. The subject is Canadiana. Which province shows 3 sheaves of wheat dominating Neil?
Manitoba.
It's provincial coat of arms. BC, Darryl.
Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan is right. The Atlantic Charter was signed by Churchill and Neil.
Roosevelt.
Yes, it was in 1941 in what Newfoundland Bay, BC? Placentia Bay. Which city is home to Hess House, the Royal Neil?
London.
Royal Botanical Gardens and McMaster University, BC.
Hamilton.
Right. Hamilton is right. Which province ranks 4th in Neil?
Alberta.
Alberta's right, in land area. Here's an open audio question now. It's worth 30 points on classical music. Please listen and wait for the questions. This is a ballet first performed on May 29th, 1913. Neil.
Rite of Spring.
That is right. The Rite of Spring is correct for 10 points. Who was the famous Russian dancer, Neil?
Diaghilev.
Who choreographed this first production of the ballet, BC? Darryl.
Baryshnikov.
Nijinsky. This ballet's title also inspired a recent book on the social history of the 20th century. The book, Rite of Spring, was written by which Canadian university professor? Greg.
Arthur Fry.
No. Neil.
Morton.
Ecksteins. Modris Ecksteins wrote it. Here's a round of snappers now. What is the positive electrode of a battery? Jeff.
The anode.
Right. The 12 most illustrious knights of Charlemagne were, Neil,
The Knights of the Round Table.
were given what title, BC? Peers. Who was the Italian to discover that Jeff?
Galileo.
Right. You didn't need me to spit it out. What is the official address of the Prime Minister? Neil.
10 Downing Street.
Of Canada, British Columbia. Jeff.
24 Sussex Drive.
Right. Who was the author of Das Kapital? Neil.
Marx.
That's right, Karl Marx. On that note, we'll take a break and return with round 2 of this championship final right after this.
The Canadian Championship game of Reach for the Top will continue after these messages.
A local 613-687-6444 or 1-800-267-0612.
Several times, as you would expect in a national game of this kind, BC currently holds the lead at 125 to Ontario's 90. That could change. Here's Kathy with the next round.
Thank you, Stan. And we'll begin this round with, well, let's see how much you remember of your trip here to Winnipeg. It's a 30-point open question on Manitoba's legislative building. What heroic statue, Jeff?
The Golden Boy.
Right. The architect of the legislative, Neil,
Simon.
was Frank Symington. In what country was he born, BC? Jeff?
England.
Right for 10. Which local type of limestone was used? Neil.
Tyndall.
Tyndall is right for 10 points. Here's a 40-point assigned question now. It's worth 40 points per team. Each of you will be asked 10 points. And I like how you all sort of lean back when that happens. You're all, of course, going to be asked a question worth 10 points. If you fail to answer it correctly, your opponent above or below you has a chance at it for 5 points. And the subject is fictional characters. So BC and Craig, we will begin with you for 10 points. In the comic strip Archie, who is the principal of Riverdale High?
Mr. Beasley.
No, Peter for
Weatherby.
5. Mr. Weatherby is right. Jeff for 10 points. Paul Terry is the creator of movie cartoons. 2 of his favorite characters are Heckle and Jekyll. What kind of birds are they?
They are magpies.
Magpies is right for 10 points. Darryl for 10. Which superhero of comic strip and film fame lives in Gotham City?
Batman.
Batman does indeed. Ian for 10. What is the name of the mythological animal which resembles a horse? It has a horn growing out of its forehead.
A unicorn.
Unicorn is right for 10 points. Ontario, your turn now. And Peter for 10. This man is the boss, and Dagwood Bumstead works for him. His initials are JC. What does Dagwood call him?
Mr. Dithers.
Yes, that's right for 10. Claude, who was the small fairy tale character whose unusual talent was a knack for spinning plain, ordinary straw into gold?
Rumpelstiltskin.
Right for 10 points. Neil, Winnie the Pooh's donkey friend has a favorite food. What does Eeyore like to eat best of all?
Thistles.
Yes, good for 10. Alan, in the poem by Longfellow called Hiawatha, the hero lives on the banks of a river. What is the river's name? No. Ian for 5.
Thames.
Gitchi Gumi. Close. Gitchi Gumi. We'll move on now to an open question for 30 points on sports. Who won the men's gold medal in tennis in the 1988, Jeff?
Stefan Edberg.
No, Olympic Summer Games, Ontario. Alan.
Boris Becker.
Miroslav Micher did. What handball-like game of Spanish Basque, Neil?
Highlight.
Right for 10. Who was the first Dallas Cowboys coach, Neil?
Tom Landry.
Right for 10. An open question for 30 points now on current events. A recent ban on all produce exported from Chile was the result, Ian.
Cyanide poisoning of grapes.
Yes, that is right. Government officials reacted quickly, having delayed in dealing with previous food scares. In 1987, 2 people died. Craig.
Tainted mussels.
Tainted mussels is right. In 1985, sales of rancid tuna were not. Neil.
Starkist.
Even though ministry officials were aware of the situation, who lost his post as fisheries minister over the affair, BC? Darryl?
Tom Sidden.
It was not. It was John Fraser who had an open question for 30 points now on Tanzania. Tanganyika, Rwanda, and Burundi comprised which European colony prior to World War I? Neil?
The Belgian Congo.
No. British Columbia. Craig.
Tanganyika and Zanzibar.
German East Africa. Tanganyika and several islands offshore form the state of Tanzania. Jeff?
Zanzibar.
Zanzibar is right. Who was president of Tanzania from independence in 1962 until 1985?
Nkomo.
It was not. Ontario. Neil.
Smith.
It was Nyeri. Nyeri. Here's a Who Am I question, a chance to earn 40 points in one swoop. We'll take away 10 points for each clue we give you. For 40 points, I was born in 1827 in Saint-Sulpice, Quebec. As a missionary priest, I spent most of my life, Neil.
Lacombe.
Lacombe is right. Father Albert Lacombe, good for 40 points, and we'll move along now. We'll move along now to an open video question for 20 points on Renaissance art. Watch your monitors and wait for the questions. This is Botticelli's version. Neil.
The Birth of Venus.
Yes, that is right. Botticelli was a 15th century master associated with which Italian city? Neil.
Venice.
Not Venice. Jeff.
Florence.
Florence is right for 10 points. Here's a chance to earn 20 points quickly if you can list any 5 of the 8. Neil.
The Great Pyramid of Cheops.
No. 5 of the 8 U.S. states whose names start with the letter M, BC. Jeff.
Michigan, Montana.
I think we're out of time at this point. We've got Massachusetts, Maine, Maryland, Mississippi, Montana, Michigan, Minnesota, and Missouri. An open question now for 30 points on People. Identify the following Canadian-born entertainers who wrote and starred in the successful CBC TV series A Gift to Last. Jeff.
I did.
It was, which was aired in the late 1970s. Ontario, Neil.
Gordon Pinsent.
Right for 10. Nicknamed the man with 1,000 voices. Neil.
Lon Chaney.
Whose first record album? Ian.
Gagnon.
It is Rich Little. With his Montreal Canadiens hockey sweater and afro hairstyle, which pop singer took Quebec by storm in the late, Neil?
René Simard.
Late 60s and early 70s, British Columbia. That was Robert Charlebois. And we'll take a break on that note and return with the final round in a moment.
The Canadian Championship game of Reach for the Top will continue after the...
Draperies Plus celebrates their 4th anniversary in the Renfrew Mall.
Created a better game for you. This is a national championship final, and right now the score is tied at 2:15. Here's Kathy.
And the final round of the game with an open question for 40 points on literary criminals. Which British novelist wrote The Adventures of Neil?
Defoe.
Yes, that is right, Daniel Defoe. The gangster McKeith or Mac the Knife is a character in which, Neil?
The Threepenny Opera.
Right for 10 points. Which Canadian novelist told the story of Kip Cayley? Neil.
Morley Callahan.
Yes, he did. What is the name of the hero of Dostoevsky's? Neil.
Raskolnikov.
Good for 10 points. It's a 35-point team question now. The scramble for 5 points. What peninsula may be found between the Black Sea and the sea, Neil?
The Hellespont.
Sea of Azov, British Columbia. Craig.
The Crimean Peninsula.
Crimean Peninsula is right, BC. A chance to earn the next 30 points. And the questions deal with the Crimea. In the 6th century BC, when the area was called the Tauric Chersonese, what people settled the peninsula, BC?
The Byzantines?
The Greeks did. The Crimean Peninsula was annexed by Russia in 1783. To whom was it subject previously? BC? Craig?
Turkey.
Turkey is right. In the Crimean War, the British, French, and Ottoman Turkish were allied against what country?
Russia.
Craig? Yes, that is right for 10 points. And now a round of snappers. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Neil?
Hamlet.
Right. What is the chemical symbol of the element? Jeff?
Fe.
Lanthanum, Ontario. Claude?
LT.
LA. How many time zones are contained? Neil?
7.
In the borders of Canada, BC. Craig?
5.
6. Cartoon character Yogi Bear lives in... Ian?
Yellowstone National Park.
Right for 10. What is the literal English translation of the German word Luftwaffe? Neil?
The Air Force.
Yes, that is right for 10. An open question now for 30 points on science. What is the branch of mechanics that utilizes the necessary relations between forces on bodies? Craig?
Dynamics.
On bodies at rest to determine unknown forces in machine and structural elements, Ontario. Claude?
Kinetics.
Statics. What is the term applied to the temperature at which solid, liquid, and Neil?
Triple point.
Triple point is right for 10. 3 characteristics are generally used to distinguish one color from another. Hue and saturation, Neil.
Frequency.
Are 2 of the basic attributes. What is the third, BC? Craig?
Tone.
Lightness or brightness. An open question for 30 points. It's a word puzzle. What letter must be added to the beginning of a word meaning a long shaft with a broad blade at one end used as a lever for rowing to create a second word meaning to utter a loud, deep Neil?
R.
R is right. Or and roar. What letter must be added to the beginning of a word meaning situated or occurring not far above the ground, floor, or base to create a second word meaning to move along in a stream as water or other liquid? Neil?
F.
F is right. Low and flow. What letter must be added to the beginning of a word meaning a noisy dispute or quarrel to create a second word meaning in anatomy? Neil?
B.
B is right. Row and brow. Open question for 30 points now on trigonometry. What is the cosine of Neil?
1.
Of 45 degrees, BC. Craig?
Root 2 over 2.
Right. What is sine squared x plus cosine squared, Neil?
1.
Yes. What is the tangent of 315, Neil?
1 over root 2.
315 degrees,
1.
BC. Yes, it is not 1, pardon me, it is -1. Here's an open question for 30 points on Canadiana. What is Canada's largest public museum? Neil?
The Royal Ontario Museum.
Yes, for 10 points. What city's wild fur auctions are among the largest in the world? Neil?
Edmonton.
No, British Columbia. Jeff?
Winnipeg.
North Bay, Ontario. Waterton Lakes National Park was united in 1932 with Montana's Glacier National Park to create the world's first... Craig?
Wood Buffalo National Park.
No, Ontario. First what? Claude?
Glacier Park.
Yes, it is Glacier Park, and but that's not what we're looking for. It's the first International Peace Park. Thank you very much, judges. An open question for 20 points now on famous prisons. What is the name of the, Neil?
Alcatraz.
Of the prison in Belfast, Ireland, where Bobby Sands and other RRA members staged a hunger strike. Craig? Not there. Maze Prison. Let's go to the final round of snappers. British Columbia, 260. Ontario, 335. This city in Southern California is well known for... Jeff?
San Diego.
Yes, naval base. Name the first practicing woman doctor in... Neil?
Stowe.
Yes, in Canada. What was the previous name of Bangladesh? Neil?
East Pakistan.
Correct for 10. A U.S.-supported attempted coup d'etat ended in disaster in Cuba in 61.
Bay of
Craig?
Pigs.
Bay of Pigs. Who was president of Egypt during this... Neil?
Nasser.
Yes, Suez Crisis. What was Lester B. Pearson's nick? Neil?
Mike.
Yes. In what province would I find Kamloops and Neil?
British Columbia.
Yes. In what year did wartime rationing begin? Neil?
1918.
In Canada, BC. Craig?
1917.
42. Who is the present president of the International... Neil?
Samaranch.
Yes, Olympic Committee. In which French city was Joan of Arc tried and burned? Neil?
Rouen.
Yes. What is the English term for the French loup-garou? Neil?
A werewolf.
Yes, that is right. Uppsala is an historic city in what country? Ian?
Canada.
No, Ontario. Neil?
Turkey.
Sweden. Who is generally credited with inventing the game of basketball? Neil?
Naismith.
Yes. What was the nickname of Newfoundland's narrow gauge railway? Neil?
The Labrador
Not
Railway.
fair. Railway finished in 1898, BC.
The
Ian?
Little Railway.
It's called the Newfie Bullet. The long walls built under Pericles connected Athens with Neil.
Sparta.
No. With what seaport? BC, Jeff?
Piraeus.
Right. Hannibal and his army crossed the Alps. Neil?
The Punic Wars.
To engage the army of what city in battle?
Rome.
Jeff? Rome. What is the name used to describe the process of a caterpillar changing? Neil?
Metamorphosis.
Yes. What is the name of the instrument that breaks up light? Neil?
A refractor.
No. British Columbia. Craig.
A prism.
It is a spectroscope. Opera star Placido Domingo was born in Neil.
Italy.
No. Jeff.
Mexico.
Mexico is right. Which singer recorded the hit Missing You? Neil.
Waits.
And Lady in Red, Craig's... Krista Berg. We'll be back with the final of this final right after this.
The Canadian Championship game of Reach for the Top will continue after these messages.
John's War Surplus reminds you 2 very important seasons are coming up.
Welcome back, and we have our first national champions in a long time, Ontario, with 435 points. Congratulations to British Columbia's 310 points. We want to congratulate each and every player from British Columbia for putting in such a fine effort. Craig Steeves, Jeff Crofton, Daryl Thompson, and Ian Dixon. And congratulations to Coach Ted Lampard. And our congratulations to the players from Ontario, Peter Simard, Claude Theoret, Neil Wheeler, and Alan Coleman, and their coach, Dan Maloney. And now to present you with the trophy, the first National Reach for the Top trophy to be presented in a long time, Jack Bagri from Videon and Sandy Stewart from Reach for the Top. Congratulations, players and coach. A fine victory, and we want to thank everyone for tuning in and watching us.
Transportation during the Reach for the Top National Championships has been provided exclusively by Circle Tours and Grey Goose Bus Lines, a Laidlaw company. And in celebration of the 10th anniversary of the Walkman, winners of the Reach for the Top National Championship will receive special edition Walkmans, courtesy of Sony of Canada Limited. Accommodations for students participating in the Reach for the Top National Championships have been provided by the University of Manitoba. The winners of the National Championship Series of Reach for the Top will have earned for their school a set of the 32-volume Encyclopedia Britannica in black heirloom. Each of the 4 students participating will also receive from Encyclopedia Britannica a 3-volume Merriam-Webster dictionary with a 7-languages translation. For more information, call toll-free 1-800-268-6364. Ask for operator number 5696.
This is CHRO TV, Cable 6.